As we start to move into spring and summer, it's got me thinking about what kind of horror films I like to watch as the weather gets warmer. One of my favourites is definitely Nightmare Vacations or Vacations Gone Wrong. So I thought I would put together a little list today of some of my favourite ones. Definitely let me know what films you would add to this list because I would love more to watch as we move into the warmer weather. First on my list is a film called The Ruins. A group of friends travel from America to Mexico for a fun, sunny holiday. Their vacation takes a dark turn when they agree to follow a fellow tourist into the jungle. This film is actually based off of a book of the same name by Scott Smith that came out 2 years prior. This film came out in 2008 and the 2000s is one of my all-time favourite decades for horror. It has the perfect mix of cheesiness, being really entertaining and having that nostalgic value. If you go into this film not knowing too much, then you will probably be surprised on what it's actually about. It is quite gory, it has some intense and gruesome body horror scenes. It is definitely one that will make your skin crawl, maybe not for the faint-hearted when it comes to being squeamish. The characters do make some really stupid decisions, but I just feel like that goes with the 2000s charm. Next on this list is As Above, So Below. A group of explorers decide to investigate the catacombs under Paris. It ends up being a lot bigger than they expected and a lot harder to navigate, causing them to get lost in this nightmare maze. This is a found footage film and it is actually terrifying. It's so claustrophobic, the group of people just end up getting stuck deeper and deeper underground. You just feel so anxious watching this because you're so desperate for them to find light and to be able to escape. From when they step foot into the catacombs, it has such a tense feeling. There are also some jump scares and just some really intense moments. It is also really interesting to see all the different rooms that they go through underground. There's never a dull moment in this film. They get into things quite quickly. The next film on my list is Old. A family go on vacation to a beautiful resort. Whilst they're there, the manager invites them to a secluded beach for a nice family day out. They accept this invitation and go along with a small group of others. Whilst at this beach, they start to realise that time is moving very quickly and they are rapidly aging. This is a really unique concept. It's kind of a mix between psychological horror, body horror, and has elements of mystery as well. The people that are stranded spend quite a lot of time obviously trying to get off this beach, and as a viewer we are trying to figure out what's happening and if they were intentionally put there or if it is just some freak natural disaster or maybe something else. The acting is amazing. There are some really distressing scenes that are what they are because of the acting. This is by M. Night, so you just know that you're going to get a crazy twist at the end. The next film is Backcountry. In this survival horror film we follow a couple that decides to go backpacking into the wilderness for a relaxing getaway. Things don't end up as relaxing as they hoped it would have been, as they end up going off track into the territory of a black bear. This is a very stressful film, so please bear that in mind. It's one that does have you kind of feeling hopeless. I do think it is necessary for this film to have these emotional and tense moments because it's not a film that is completely action-packed. There's not something happening all the time, so it's kind of an inevitable build-up to an event happening. It is a little bit slow in areas. Backcountry is actually loosely based on a true story, which is an actual nightmare. Honestly, I've seen way too many horror films to ever go camping out in the wilderness. The next film is The Descent. A group of cave exploring friends decide to set out on a new expedition. They descend into a new to them cave system but end up getting trapped down there, and if that's not bad enough, they soon realise that they are not alone. This is definitely a great film to watch in the dark. There are some really good scares. There is a few jump scares. One that really gets to me in particular. I feel like a lot of people may know which scene I'm talking about. The creature design is so cool. I really love the behind the scenes photos from this film of the creatures because they are really funny. I love that all the explorers are women and they are really strong characters. Even though I always say I don't think we need any more reboots and remakes, I think I would like one more film in this franchise, but only if it's found footage, because I feel like these films are already absolutely terrifying, and the element of found footage, of it feeling real, of it feeling like maybe you're there or that you've just found this footage, would just take it up a notch and make it truly terrifying. There is actually two different endings to this film. I've only seen one of them. I do think it is the original ending, and I think this ending paved the way for so many other horror films. Next on this list is Get Out. In this psychological horror film, Chris travels with his girlfriend to go and meet her parents for the first time as a weekend getaway. At first, her family seems seem normal and nice, but Chris starts to slowly notice them acting weirder and weirder. I know this film is very popular, but I just had to include it in this list because I love Jordan Peele's films and because this is definitely a nightmare situation for a getaway. This is such a unique and entertaining film. It has some great commentary on social and historical issues. Like in all of his films, they are incredible films on surface level, but also have more layers to them, making them more complex art pieces. What Chris goes through is absolute hell. It's definitely a tense build up as we go through this journey with him, noticing the people around him starting to act different as we try to piece together what is happening. This is all revealed to us in a very wild ending. Next up is Eden Lake. A couple go on vacation to a lake for a relaxing weekend together. Unfortunately, their holiday ends up being anything but peaceful when they get terrorized by some relentless and aggressive teenagers. This is definitely the most disturbing and devastating film on this list. I haven't actually rewatched this film in quite a while. It's not really one I go to rewatch because it doesn't really leave me feeling too good. So bear that in mind if you're thinking about watching this. This is most people's worst nightmare in a film. It is truly scary. This is the kind of horror that really relates to real life because it is something that could happen, so it just makes it so much worse. There are so many moments where you just wish the main characters got out of there, made different choices. The performances were all really good. You really do hate the teenagers, which shows how good all of their performances are. Jenny is definitely my favourite character. She is one of the two that gets terrorized. Her performance is honestly chilling, especially as it moves towards the end of the film. My next recommendation is Paradise Lost. A group of teens set off to go backpacking, but their bus ends up breaking down on the way there, leaving them in a rural area in a country that they know nothing about. This is the typical vacation goes wrong. I don't want to give too much away of where this story goes, but it is pretty obvious. This film stars Olivia Wilde and Melissa George, who are definitely my favourites in this film. They work so well in the horror genre. Of course, Olivia Wilde has now gone on to direct the psychological horror film Don't Worry Darling, which I personally really enjoy. She has also acted in loads of other films. Melissa George is also an absolute icon. She has been in loads of amazing films, including some really good horror films like Triangle and 30 Days of Night. I really enjoy the gore and the special effects in Paradise Lost. It feels really real and really gruesome at times. It is very typically 2000, being a bit cheesy and with the characters not always making the best decisions. For me personally, the bad elements of 2000s horror films is what gives them their own charm and makes them comfort watches, but that might just be because I grew up watching them. Next is Blink Twice. Frida and her friend get invited back to a billionaire's private island when meeting him at a gala that they were waitressing at. Spending lots of time relaxing and partying, their days begin to all merge together as a blur, but Frida notices some gaps in her memory as things start to get a bit weird. This film has so many surprises, lots of twists, and some mysteries to keep you guessing. It does also have a subtle comical element that is just mainly through the characters' dialogue, but they don't force it too intensely so it doesn't feel fake. Blink Twice has a great cast. Channing Tatum plays one of the main characters, and this is kind of a role that we don't usually see him in, although his character still feels like it has some elements of a Channing Tatum character. The main star really is Naomi Ackie, who plays the role of Frida. She is so amazing in this role. As audience members, we really feel like we're going on this journey with her and feel pretty invested into her character from the start. I do really like the girls on the island. Their chemistry is really entertaining and has some really funny moments. This is a film that came out last year. It is more of a psychological thriller with horror elements. It does also have some disturbing elements, and it is actually one of the only films that I've ever seen have a trigger warning at the beginning of the film, which I really appreciated, and I really hope that more films in the future follow suit and also do this, especially if they are centered around heavier topics. The last film on this list is All My Friends Hate Me. Pete meets up with some old college friends that he hasn't seen in years for his birthday celebrations. They're all acting really weird, so he wonders if they're turning against him or is it all in his head. This one is definitely a little bit different from the other films that I've put on this list, but I thought I would put it in here for something different. This film is the perfect portrayal of anxiety, manipulation, gaslighting, and toxic friendships. It is a really depressing film, but it is done in a really good way. It's quite a hard watch because of how cringy it is. Cringy as in the awkward sense. It is very tragically sad, and I unfortunately do think a lot of us can relate to this film even in a small way. It is more of a showcase of deep, dark and depressing human emotions. The script is really original. I do think this would make the perfect double bill with the original Speak No Evil that came out in 2022. So that's the end of this video. There are my top 10 horror films surrounding Nightmare Vacations. As I said at the start, if you have any other recommendations, then do leave them in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another one soon.